So we're now looking for some way to get into a better condition to face into the future. And I think one of the common things that we can do is simply to postulate that anything that we are doing has levels and strata for us to consider. When we consider going into business, this is also a moral decision, not merely an economic one. We do not expect to have all things run smoothly, but we do expect that everything will teach us something of value. And value is not to be determined in terms of wealth or fame. Value is the unfoldment of the internal potential of the divinely endowed part of man. And progress is the individual growing up to himself, because within each of us is something that is infinitely wiser and infinitely better than our own daily conduct. There is hardly anyone who could not improve, and there are very few to whom improvement would not be valuable. So we begin to think of all the ways in which we can use what we commonly call knowledge to increase wisdom, to make it possible for us to have a better world to live in and to become better people in this world. So now let's see what happens when we start in with wisdom. Now, where does wisdom come from? Wisdom was developed by the ancients for one purpose alone, and that was to learn to understand the meaning of existence. Now, there are various ways in which you can get some idea of this meaning. We can start with knowledge, and we can read a book on archaeology or on astronomy or engineering or any subject and learn all the interesting and fantastic things that we are gradually accumulating in the forms of knowledge. Yet we can go on and do all these things and they become intellectual. And we can take an examination and pass. And because we have passed the examination, we get the good job. But with the whole thing, there's been absolutely no improvement of anything. We are simply perpetuating the blind alley. We are going on continually glorifying the way it is, instead of working earnestly to establish the way it should be. Every problem has an answer, and the answer means that we have to change our own relationship to that problem. We have to ensoul the power within ourselves which will give us the right to judge the problem. I think one of the problems that we've come in now to also is religion, in the fact that from a very early time the various peoples of the world developed religious codes. These codes they did not affirm, they created themselves. Probably many of them they did, however. But so far as they knew, these codes had come from some deep hidden source within themselves or within the soul of the world. And the idea of religion was that all things that exist bear witness to soul, bear witness to the remarkable value behind it. The individual can spend his whole life studying carrot, but he can never apparently understand how to create a carrot. He can use the things that are, but he doesn't understand them. He only understands their market value. He only understands why the dietitian says he should eat them. But the great pattern of the purpose of things, extending all the way from the infinite of the cosmos to the most minute atom, all these things have meaning. And until we find our own place in this great chain of circumstances, we will never be able to change the world to meet the law. We are never going to be able to change the law to meet us, and that's one of our difficulties. We are constantly reshaping laws. We are changing laws that we created ourselves in the first place. So we go with them as long as we can stand our own creations, and then we do something about that, and we put an appendix on it, or we put various codicils to it, so that we can continue to go along the same general path. But the actual answer to the problem is the average person, even the average educated person, has very little understanding of where we came from, why we are here, or where we are going. These are the great realities without which an enduring culture can never be built. and we are not even looking for them. We are only looking for all the secrets of science, particularly those that can be commercialized. We are not aware of the grand pattern of a human soul, that there is in each one of us a divine life that has come into exile in this world. And the reason it's in exile is because we have been here before and set up the exile. We come back to the work that we have done ourselves. We come back to our own mistakes. We come back to the ignorance that we started with, or perhaps a little worse. And we are not even willing to recognize the fact that we are missing the real purpose of life, growth. Now, what do we say when growth? Well, growth is not necessarily has anything to do with wealth or fame. Growth is the ability to handle constructively situations that we have previously mishandled. If we become, through growth, wiser than we are, we can become better than we are. But without becoming wiser, we can never become better. Wisdom is not intellectual either. We think of it as long beards gazing in great stone tablets or something of this nature. Not at all. Wisdom is no more remarkable than Benjamin Franklin's almanac. Wisdom breaks down finally to common sense. Common sense, but it's common sense in a universe in which the very structure of that universe is common sense. Everything about the universe makes sense. Everything that man does about it is dubious. We're not at all sure that he's gaining on it. But it is true beyond any question that the simple facts of existence are the basis of wisdom. Wisdom is not learning another language. Wisdom is to learn a language so that we can talk to another man. All things are for use value, and that use is not for profit, but for growth. So we are constantly working to build new echoes and new sounds and tones to enrich the relationships of life. In about 10 years now, we're going to enter a new century. At the present moment, we're all tremendously excited over the prospect. In fact, we're not only excited, but many people are frightened to death. All the way along the way, everyone is looking and trying to figure out what we're going to do with the remaining 10 years of this century. Now, probably Ben Franklin would say very fairly, forget the 21st century, do it right now in the last years of the 20th century, and you'll have nothing to worry about. You have nothing to worry about when you start keeping the rules. And you don't have to set aside a period many years from now when you're going to start doing that. This idea that we have that the universe is made up of sections which come into manifestation, and in those various sections are the various skills, or the various ideals, or the integrities which are to be developed at that time. The truth of the matter is, these integrities must be developed in all times, in all conditions, and in every phase of existence. We want to go into the 21st century. We'd like to be able to hope that we'd be able to stand the drinking water as late as that we will also find some kind of a way to get the sewage out of our basements. We are also hoping to save a forest or two merely to be able to show people what a tree looked like. All of this type of thing is a little ridiculous, I know. But the point is very definitely that we have got to do something to change anything. And the power to change is the power of wisdom. Now, the ancients tried to develop a way to getting wisdom. And they came to a conclusion that I think we're going to have to come to again. Namely, that wisdom cannot be forced upon mankind. Wisdom cannot be stuffed down the human throat. It cannot be legislated into existence. And it cannot be perpetuated by people who don't want it. So the ancients decided to divide a group apart. They took those who yearned after righteousness and who sought knowledge and who had that dedication to the common good that was necessary for the perpetuation of progress, and created the schools of wisdom, the Platonic schools, the Pythagorean schools, these various mysteries of Egypt and Greece and all the other countries for the training of people who wanted to know the reality. They needed to know that there was something beyond the commonplace. But they tried to tell it to everyone. Those who didn't care diluted it, perverted it, destroyed it. Therefore, they created a rule to control the dissemination of essential knowledge. They said that that knowledge has to be perpetuated by the right kind of person. That you can't just simply toss it on the surface of life and expect it to find a safe place to hide or to live. We have to be able to recognize that the attainment of knowledge is the highest labor of mankind, and that the attainment of knowledge is the basis of all philanthropy, the basis of all unselfishness, the basis of all cooperation, and the strengthening of all the constructive emotions of the human being. Therefore, to do this, it must be discipline. And all ancient people set aside certain disciplines for those who wanted to know the truth more than anything else. These they called the mystery schools. They were the schools of Egypt and all these different systems, Phoenicia, Chaldea. They were the schools of the island of Como, and they were even the schools that continued down into the Middle Ages, finally became the labor unions. It was a case of where there had to be a group of dedicated people to keep alive the forces which protect mankind. And this dedicated group had to show by their action and by the consequences of their works that they were the defenders of mankind, that they were the most important thing in all the world, those who sought to serve the truth. Now we have this coming into religion, and for Christendom, the Christ mystery is probably the most important of all these dedications. Christianity is actually a real problem of wisdom. Now, it might sound as though wisdom is all intellectual, but it is not. The greatest of all wisdom is the love of truth, the love of reality, and the brotherhood of human life. But in this time, the development of certain laws of reality, and we're going to have to some way get back to some of this. We're going to have some place honorable, recognized, and supported, by which those who desire to live better have a chance to do so, and where those who have the inside information in certain matters have a chance to express their internal convictions. Now, religion has for a long time provided certain phases of this. Even today in the 20th century, where science very largely is materialistic, it lives and moves and has its being in the presence of religion. And every day we are learning in the present world stress that religion is not something to be discarded. That if there is anything exact, it is religion, not science. Because the inevitable consequence of the misuse of power is moral punishment. And it also is that religion can prove conclusively that the only way in which the individual can protect himself and his world is by the development of integrities. He has to become a better person if he expects to make a better world. So we're now going to have somewhere along the line the science of redemption. We're going to have a gradual rising of peoples who believe that the greatest of all knowledge is the knowledge to live an enlightened life. That all other things are decorations or incidental. Even a trade or a profession or a career is incidental to the basic fact that all professions and all careers exist primarily to help the individual to grow.